Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Soyam Brahmashi Vayaste Vajasi Varat Nigo Katam Arhati Dharmagya Vadham Pitur Ivatmata Soyam Namah Shivayaste Vajasi Varat Nigo Katam Arhati Dharmagya Vadham Pitur Ivatmata Saha, he, the Brahma, I am, this, Brahma Shri Shivaya, not only Brahma but the best of the great sages, all Brahmashis, Te, order from you, Raja Rishi Parvat, who is the best of all saintly kings? Rajashis. Vibho, O master of the state. Katam, how? Arhati, he deserves. Dharmagya, O you, were quite aware of religious principles. Vadham, killing. Prithu, from the father. Iva, like. Atmajaha, the son. Translation. My Lord, you are completely aware of the religious principles. As a son never deserves to be killed by his father, here Brahma, who should be protected by the king and never be killed, how does he deserve to be killed by Rajashi like you? The word Rajashi refers to a king who behaves like a rishi or sage. Such a king is also called Naradev because he is considered the representative of the Supreme Lord. Because his duty to rule the kingdom to maintain Brahmanical culture, he never desires to kill a Brahmin. Generally, the Brahmana, woman, child, old man or cow never regarded as punishment. Thus the wife of the Brahmana requests the king to refrain from killing from this sinful acts. Omadyanti Nandasya Gadajana Shlaya Shakshtavitamina Tasmai Sivayama Chitanya Mano Ishtam Stavitani Vantale Swayam Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare So, here the position of the king is elaborated upon. You see, in the Varnashram system, the sages, they don't follow any social system. They live practically speaking anarchy. That means everybody does his own thing. Everybody is absorbed in his bhajan, his preaching in his own way. So they don't have a social system. Then, on the next step of the society, there's a king. And so the social system for the masses is to follow the king, monarchy. When the king deteriorates, when monarchy deteriorates, then the next system is democracy. That many small fools choose one to become the biggest fool. That's democracy. And when democracy fails, then you have dictatorship. That somebody ruthless, unconcerned with the welfare of the people, like we had in Germany, Hitler. Mao Zedong. How many people died under Mao Zedong? 100 million people. 100 million people. Germany also. I mean, Stalin, 40 million people. Germany also Hitler. You have no idea how it is to live under dictatorship. Dictator can be cruel like anything. I could tell you stories about just the Hitler time, because my father was in a concentration camp. It was absolutely cruel. Unless you love Hitler, you're gone, practically speaking. My father, he came out of church, and the greeting at that time was, "Hi Hitler." So the mayor stood in front of the church. He wanted to see who goes to church and who not, because it was not officially approved to go to church. So he stood in front of church, and my father came out. My father was a businessman, well-known businessman in town. "Hi Hitler, Mr. Brinkman." And my father said, "You can also say, read God." Read God, because that's what people say normally. They say, "Read God. Good morning, read God." The man looked at his man. Next night, they picked him up. They woke him up with the back of rifles beating down the stairs all the way to the truck, and threw him on the truck like an animal. And he was tortured for considerable time. And so his suffering was tremendous. Tremendous. And every night he was pulled out of bed and beaten. Every night, and they told him the next night we come back. And this went on for weeks and months and months. So this is dictatorship. So society is constructed by Krishna in such a way that there's, among 1,000 people, there's one Brahman. Then there are 9 people who have the qualities of Kshatriyas. 9. 1 plus 9 is 10. Then there are 19 who know how to make money. Business people, the mercantile class, they know. They understand money. I don't understand money personally. I know how to spend money, that's true. But how to manage money, you have to be trained. There's a way to do that, namely to invest as much as possible and take for yourself as little as possible so that the company can grow. That's why the Jewish people are very good business people. Very good business people. It's a typical business class in the Western world, the Jewish people. And so their joke is to the Christians, Jesus saves, Moses invests. It's a joke. And it is true, I met one boy in Amsterdam, and he was Jewish. He told me, he said, "Why are you asking me to buy this book? I'm a Jew." I said, "You should read it." He said, "Why?" He said, "It will help you." So I opened the book, and there was this verse, namely, in this endeavor there is no loss. So he said, "No loss." He said, "What business is there when there is no loss? I will join you." He was smart. He became a Hare Krishna devotee because his eyes went, no, Lord, like this, you know. So he became a Hare Krishna follower. And then that class, and then there are, these are the Vaishya class, 90 plus 10 is 100, and then there are 900 Sudras. You know, people who are simple-minded, they do any work. You know, you tell them to do this. You know, I had one boy, I forgot his name, Bhima. And he was, I mean, his body was built like a gorilla. His hands like a gorilla, you know. And I would tell him, Bhima, you see this huge stock of wood there. Can you chop it? He says, yes. 2 hours later came, it's done, you have more. He said, that was his done. We gave him some work like this, he was happy, like anything. I wouldn't be happy just by looking at it, that I have to do it, or to speak of doing it, right? You know, but look at his hands, you know, they're smaller, they're good for playing harmonium. That's about it, you know. So they are in sutras, and in generally the mentality is they should follow some authority. You know, that's how the Varnashram Dharma system is. That it doesn't matter whether you are the king, whether you're Brahmana, whether you're Kshatriya, whether you're Vaishya, whether you're Sudra. That's the material designation. That's the material designation. The question is what you do with it. What you do. Some followers of Lord Chaitanya, very intelligent. You know, very intelligent men who spoke Sanskrit. And he thought the best thing is I just make leaf plates. And I have to, all the time in the world, to think of Krishna without being bothered. And you have many, in America, you have many devotees that drive big coast-to-coast truck. And all the way they hear Prabhupada, all the way. And sometimes somebody sleeps in the back, and they change another one, and they are completely into it, simply listening to Prabhupada all day, while they're doing their work. You know, so they know how to do that. You know, this is a way that whatever we do, whatever you do, that you do for Krishna. And so it doesn't matter whether we are in this form, human form, male form, female form, it doesn't matter. No one is disadvantaged because he's in a particular form, in the human form of life. Everybody has the same opportunity to Krishna. The same. No doubt that Krishna says very clearly that, what is this? Namo, actually, it's not Priya. Namoham Sarvabhutishu. I'm equal to all. Namoham Sarvabhutishu Namesh Vestyus Priya. I'm not partial. I'm equal to all. That's Krishna's position. So whatever we are, whatever form we may have, in whatever varna we may be, in whatever ashram we may be, the business is the same. Namely to worship Krishna. Rather than men wanting to become women and women wanting to become men. You know, like I don't know if I told you yesterday, was it we talked about the passport changes in Denmark, right? This is all men. They don't understand, here I am in this form, that form. Now, what should I do with that? They don't know what to do with their lives. That's the thing. Now, they don't know what is the goal of life. You see these rock stars. Prabhupada said, why rock? What does it have to do with rock? Rock stars. Prabhupada was asking, he came to America, why do they call it rock star? Prabhupada would ask always this question, are they worshipping a rock or what is it? So, they're musicians, it's in their blood. They're in their last life, musicians. They go from life to life being musicians, no doubt about it. That's why they are so good. It's 5 years they pick up a guitar and start playing, you know, and then 20 years later, 10, 15 years later they're on stage. It's from past life. It is not a blessing. It is a blessing if you use it for Krishna's service. Then it's a blessing. If you don't use it for Krishna's service, it's a curse. Because it builds up in you false ego like anything. You feel like a god. Right? This Jimi Hendrix also, he has this cover. Exit board of love. And he put himself, or the company put him in the middle of the universal form. It's a universal form, and Jimi Hendrix is in the middle of it. If Prabhupada saw it, he said, that's not very good. 5 years later, he was dead. He was murdered. Because he was no worth dead, his manager thought, than alive. His manager is a businessman. He said, if you kill him, then he will be so famous everybody wants to buy his album. It's happened. You see, so therefore you need, basically speaking, you need brahmanas, and you need a king, and you need vaishyas. If somebody is vaishya, he should make money, not just to feed his babies. You know, if he can make more money, if he has the ability to make more money, he should make as much money as possible and give it to Krishna. You see, as much money as possible. But not working himself to the bone. You know, he has to have time for sadhana, in the morning he has to have time for sadhana in the evening. Right? He has to have that. So he shouldn't work himself to the bone. But if he knows how to make money, he should make money. Right? For the glory of Krishna. And if you know how to play flute, play flute for Krishna. That is Ian Anderson. I don't know if you know, he's a very famous flute player from this group. What's the name? Scottish man. Very famous. And he dances wonderfully while he plays piano, while he plays the flute. Very attractive. And so he was asked in a television show, are you the most famous flute player in the world? He said, no. He said, who is it? He said, Krishna. That's the best thing he ever said in his life. You know? Even if the whole life was a mess, he put Krishna on the map. And even a little progress like this. A little progress like this. There's a story. There was one atheistic Russian boy. He went to college. And every morning he saw on the way to college the Hare Krishnas dancing on the street. And he was surrounded by atheistic friends. He said, just look at them. The dancing penguins. You know what penguin is? Penguin? So the Buddhists were dancing and they look like penguins. Dancing penguins. And so they were laughing at the devotees, you know. As the boys saw that, they were waving. Because the boys are innocent. He didn't know that they were real people. They saw they were laughing and waving. So all right, they waved. So this happened many times. Many times. Every time you saw them, you cracked a joke about the dancing penguins, the dancing Krishna penguins. One day, he drove on the circular road. Moscow is so big, it has 7 circular roads. It's a massive city, massive, you know. He drove and it was winter and the snow was drifting into the screen. He could hardly see, and all of a sudden there was a truck on the road. And he drove into this truck. The light went out. All of a sudden, he saw he was surrounded by very strong light, like phosphoroids, like all kinds of hundreds of, and there's 3 guys standing in front of him. Please, watch. They said, your time is up. And they threw a lasso around his neck and pulled the soul out. Within minutes, he arrived in Paris. There was a very huge man sitting on the throne. And hundreds of people in the audience. And he said, so, this is Nikolai Ivanovich. Right, you Nikolai Ivanovich, that's your name, yes or no? Yes. What has he done? Chitrakuta stood up. Said he was a rogue. He had affairs with women, running after women, cheating, stealing, lying, eating meat, so many things. Men of the throne say, anything good? Yes, my Lord. When he saw the devotees of our Lord Sri Krishna, men went like this. Everybody in the audience went like this for a moment. Dead silence in the room. They went like this in awe. So when he saw the devotees, he would ridicule them and wave them. Waves them. How many times did he wave? 27 times. Excellent. Excellent. What would you do is I give you another chance? What would you do? Look at Hare Krishna. Haribol. You go right back. The man of the throne is Haribol. Praise God, you know. Haribol is actually, in the Jewish and Christian people, they say Hallelujah. Hallel means to praise. You must do Jah. Jah means Yahweh. So praise the Lord in Jewish or Hallelujah, same thing. Exactly the same thing. So he said, Hallelujah, you go right back. And he found himself thrown into his body. And he looked up, there were two people, doctors, they were pressing his breast. He said, he's coming, you see he's coming. Let's press, that's it. And he woke up, and he went to the temple. And the devotees told him, and they heard the story, he said, you're very fortunate, because Yamaraj, you see only one time in your life, and that's too late. Okay? You saw him already. What should I do? Well, as you said to Yamaraj, you have to become a devotee. Join the Hare Krishna. Not tomorrow. Now. It's all right. He joined. There's a book distributor. You see, even a little progress on this path. Even a little tiny, he was just waving the devotees. They were waving him, he was waving back. This was their rasa. He was first ridiculing him, the devotees were waving, he waved 27 times, a different number, I made it up, I admit. And so he became a devotee. That's the main thing. The main thing of the story is whatever Krishna says is true. Krishna says, it is true that even a little progress saves a man from the greatest type of fear. Arjuna, he was as sinful as a dog, because dogs are not sinful, they acted more than the instinct. But at the time of death, because he, under the guidance of the super soul whispered to him, God in the right. He God in the right. Because he was a pious Brahmana before, he had some security. Therefore the super soul guided him to call his son the right. So at the time of death, he was very attached to his son. That father is not attached to his son. I know for myself. It's natural. And so he called Narayan at that time. The Vishnu Dutas were there and they disappeared from one moment to another. You know? This is the reality. This world as we see it is not real. It is real, but it's not everything. It is just a part of reality. There's more to reality. And if we are realizing, it expands the envelope. What we allow to see is expanded. So Krishna allows every living entity to see as much as he should see. And what you're not supposed to see, you will not see, even if it's happening right beside you. You will not see. The gopis, every gopi could only see Krishna. None of the gopis could see that Krishna was dancing as every other gopi. Because Krishna can control your perception, what you could see. In the same way with Dwarka. Narada, he could see in every palace Krishna was doing something. something different. He could see that. But general people cannot see it. When Lord Chaitanya danced in front of the Rath, only the king and Prabhu on the roof could see that Lord Chaitanya had expanded himself in so many forms. And dances with every group at the same time. Nobody else could see it. And so there's so many examples. And Krishna visited this one town, I forgot the past time. He visited one king and he visited a Brahmin. He wanted to see his Brahmin. So he entered all stores at the same time. Krishna can expand himself like that. We cannot, but Krishna can expand himself in so many forms. What do they call it in Sanskrit? I forgot. There's a term for that Prakash, Vaibhava Prakash. Or Vaibhava Prakash, right? That Krishna expands himself in so many forms. He can do it. And Brahma came. Brahma came in Dwarka. And wanted to see Krishna. So Chobida said, some Brahma is there, he wants to see you. From some Brahma. What Brahma? What Brahma are you? Chapter 400. So let me see. Yes, forehead. So he went to Krishna and said, the forehead Brahma. He said, let him come in. So the Brahma came and said, Lord, I have some requests, but before that I would like to, I have a doubt. How come you say what Brahma? I thought, I'm alone. So, see, every Brahma thinks that. Krishna says, let me show you. They all came. None of the Brahmas could see any other Brahma. None of them. Everybody was confined to a particular time and space. Right? But the Brahma could see, by the mercy of Krishna, that there were thousands of Brahmas. Some is 4 heads, 5 heads, 10 heads, unlimited. He could see. Because Krishna empowered him to see. See, what we see now, this is as much as you are empowered to see. You see? It's like a light bulb. A light bulb has a certain amount of light. Now, the man in the electricity company, he can give more light, more energy. The light bulb goes up more and more and more, becomes bigger and bigger. So in the same way, our capacity to do anything is determined by Krishna. There's something that huge capacity. And we say purity is a force. Where that purity comes from, Krishna is responding to purity. Like Prabhupada, he could, convert the life of thousands of people. If you go to Mayapur, it's just something like Purnima, it's just like New York Fifth Avenue. And I thought last time I was there, I said, just see the mercy, the capacity of Prabhupada. See, if you just see this temple construction, it's just one man in the ultimate issue. Just see the capacity to build such an enormous place. You have to have capacity, right, to inspire people to do that. So some people can do only very little, and some people can do much, because the electricity company has increased their capacity, right? The capacity is increased. So in our position, we should understand whatever I can do, whatever I know, ultimately this is as much as Krishna can do. Now he wants to see what you do with it. That's the point. What do you do with it? Are you squandering it? Like famous rock stars, they squander. They buy themselves one Rolls Royce after another. Or this rascal, so-called guru from Pune. His disciples bought him 83 Rolls Royces. And he's an spiritually insignificant man. He has no, whatever he does, whatever he said, it means nothing to the world. It means nothing. He didn't save a single one, he just put everybody into trouble. and Yamaraj is waiting for him, 100%. So it is wise if we look at ourselves and then say, well, where do I fit in? Am I a Brahmana? Am I a Kshatriya? Am I a Sudra? Or am I a woman? Am I a man? Am I this? Am I that? Am I Vaishnava? Etc. So we have to look at that, because that's what Krishna gave us. And everybody has to act in this capacity. Just like when Krishna, he was on this planet. But when he saw Yudhishthira, he bowed down to Yudhishthira because Yudhishthira was older than him. He could understand, of course Krishna can understand. So he was acting according to the Dharma, the Vaishnava, the Varnashram Dharma system. And so also, Varnashram Dharma is very important. It's very important. And it starts with the family. It starts with the family. One big personality in ISKCON, in a leading position, I told him that. I said, we have to start Varnashram Dharma. He said, well, nobody knows how to start it, he said, well, it starts in the family. The husband and wife has to be the one. It starts right there. And that's the smallest building block of human society, is the family. If you build a house, you need these building blocks, like you use in granite here. Every granite is strong, and therefore the whole thing is strong. So family unit fails, the society is ruined. It's ruined. It's just a matter of time. Then Varnashranka will be born. All kinds of things will happen. And all kinds of strange people will be put in the position of government, although they have no position. They have no training to be a king. I mean, I met a couple of Indian kings. I met the king of Mysore. It was, what was it? Pariwar of Pejwa Maharaj from the Mutt, the Balachaya Mutt. And he saw me in the morning. He said, "You should come on the ceremony. You're invited." So I went there, and when I came, he put me, there was a long queue, and he put me in front. And I said, "Why should I be in the front of this queue? I'm just a small guy, white boy, I'm lazy, I said, "What is your business?" to the person next door. I said, "I'm the king of Mysore." I said, "The king of Mysore, you should speak first." He said, No. You're in the position of Brahma, you have to speak. He was very humble. I met the king of Himachal, Badrinath. His seat was in Badrinath. He was an ambassador of India to Ireland. And he came for Janmashtami. And so I talked with him. I didn't know he was a king. It came out so readily, so we take he's a king. Okay. So he was an ambassador, Very humble man. And I asked him, is it true that over the winter, Narada is taking care of the puja? He said, yes, I know. Because I seal the temple every autumn. It's me who seals it. And I break the seal in spring. And I'm the first person who goes in. And what do I see? Candles are burning, all the stocks, the food stocks are exhausted. Everything is immaculately clean. He said, there's nobody, I know, I can tell you, there's nobody going in and out. Because there's only one door, and that's sealed. And I break the key. So very humble man. And so they know how to be kings. Kings should not be puffed up. He should not demand respect. People respect him by his demeanor. And you can see when these people, even they move like kings. You can understand, he's trained from childhood to be a king. And this way, from generation to generation, this knowledge how to be kings is, passed on. And so, ultimately, we need a king. Imagine it would be decided that our present Prime Minister Modi should be the king. With that sort of power, everything will change. No doubt about it. Right? He will be able to do many things without being concerned for votes. He can just push it through, it'll be done. And it'll be done. Particularly, I'm sensitive in terms of sleeping. When I hear the howling of the dogs in India and the barking, my first wish to Narendra Modi is that he airdrops all these stray dogs of India over Pakistan. That will solve that problem. Right? And we enjoy that. So, Prabhupada said that Calcutta, and there was a king. He said, it was so clean you eat from the floor. He said, 2 times a day, elephants would come and spray the whole roads with rose water. And if you have your house not nicely painted, he would send, the minister would go around and inspect the houses from outside. If there was a house which was not nicely painted, he gets a message from the king. He said, you got to do it. I give you 10 days time. If not, something will happen. So people, they follow that. I mean, think of East Asia. East Asia is like every other country, basically speaking. The same democracy, and there's the same pile of rubbish, and this and that, right? Now, here comes the governor of Singapore, and he is like a king. You drop one piece of paper on the ground, you find $1,000. You spit beetle on a wall, $1,000. You drop one bit of a cigarette, your last cigarette, $1,000. All the thieves ran away as soon as he came in charge. They ran away to Indonesia, they went to Malaysia, because their income is stealing. I mean, the thief knows only his business is stealing, right? So they ran away. They said, we have no future here. Is that sort of government? So he's like a king. And therefore he can order. Yes, ministers inspecting everything. They make reports. And the king makes sure it is being done. This is how you create law and order. There has to be, the government has to, if necessary, the government is the only institution in human society that can legally manifest violence. Is the police force. They can. Nobody else can do that. And that works. I saw it last year, 2 years ago, I was sitting on the Rath Guard in Mayapur. We pulled out of this gate, this big gate, to return down the road, 300 yards back. So when we came on the gate, the whole gate was blocked down left and right of vendors. It's these little 4-wheel cars, and they didn't want to move. They didn't want to move. The Rasta couldn't go. Then the devotee in charge made an order, and security people came. 100. And they talked to these guys, please move. They wouldn't. No? All right. They pulled up the nutties. The road was cleared within 30 seconds. Because that's what people understand. That's what people understand. They don't follow government. It has to be executed. The execution power. People, it's all government people that just become unruly. They do whatever they like. This is, in Western countries, there's cleanliness on the street because they're so rich, they hire people who clean. But if that's not there, then the king has to do it. He has to organize cleanliness. And he makes sure that everything is clean. And that there's no uncertainty When I came to Singapore one time, I had my computer there. I was worried. Wanted to lock it. They said, "We are leaving the apartment. Please lock it." I said, "No necessity." I said, "Why?" He said, "This is Singapore. The thieves are gone. And those who are left, they just chop their hand off. You know, if you found this much bang, you're going to be hanged. Because it's forbidden. There's a nice story. There was one devotee. He joined our temple in Heidelberg. And in Mangala, the police came, 3-4 people. There he is. They grabbed him, they handcuffed him, and pulled him out of the temple. They said, "How can you do that?" "Who are you?" I said, "I'm the temple president." "What's your name?" "Peter Brinkman." I said, "Mr. Brinkman, you know what we are doing. We cannot explain why we take him. That has to be decided by the court first. But he has to come. The judge is looking for him." Day later he called me. He was crying. He said, "Yes, I smuggled this much here in his pocket of dough." So the judge was looking for him. They were allowed to do that. And so this boy told me, he said, "My lawyer, if you don't have money, the government gives you a lawyer, right? He said that you should speak to the judge and explain to him what is his life now." And so I went. And there were about 100 people in the courtroom. They were all being convicted during the day, sentenced during the day for this and that. Petty session court, not murders, but just stealing, doing some nonsense. And so then the judge said, "Is there a Mr. Brinkman here?" I said, "Yes, that's me." He said, "I heard you wanted to talk in this case. This case had just come up." I said, "Yes." So he said, "Speak." It's very broad, "Speak." So I said, "Your Honor, it is said that jail, and I understand he has to go to jail, even for whatever. Jail is there to rectify people. Is that true?" He said, "Yes, that's the purpose." I said, "He's already rectified." I said, "How is that?" The judge said, "Well, we don't take any drugs. What to speak of smuggling drugs? Not to even drinking tea, coffee, alcohol, cigarette. Nothing. No gambling. No meat eating. Meat, fish, eggs, nothing." He said, "Not even sex." The judge said, "No sex." But he woke up and said, "No sex." I said, "No, only marriage." The judge said, "That is worse than hell. Taking visibly sufficiently punished." And the whole court laughed, all the people were clapping. He was a lion judge. Taking visibly sufficiently punished. And I laughed like everybody else. The judge laughed. You see, government has to exert its power. And when the power comes from the people, then you have to be careful that you not upset this group or that group. Like in Germany, I saw in the papers, I heard, I saw on the internet in the morning, early morning, there was one man of a Muslim community, and there's a city gate there, there's a statue of Jesus hanging on the cross. So he came with a sledge that's there since hundreds of years. And he came with a sledgehammer and smashed it, and pulled it down and trampled on it. I waited for the news at 10 o'clock, it was on the air. It was nowhere in the media. And so finally I talked to a journalist, who was in the media. I said, "Do you know that case?" He said, "Yes." I said, why is he not reported? Because everybody's afraid that he wakes up with a bread knife in his back. Right? There's a bread knife in his back. People are afraid. See, this is when there is no strong government. Government have to put order to this group or to that group. Whatever they want, he will give it. Even if it is nonsense, he will give it, just to stay in power. So when Prabhupada visited Indira Gandhi, he had a little notebook where he had his wishes, and you can see that in Prabhupada's room, Vrindavan. And one point was Rajiv for king. That she should make, Indira Gandhi should make him a king. Because then, he said, the king, things start getting in order. It is the God-given system. It's not made by somebody on the west coast of America. It's not. It's made by Krishna. And Krishna says, Shatu, forecast. He says. And there's Bhagavatam says that. What is that verse? Vanasham Parashas Panuchitasya Dharmasya Samsini Hari Kushana. Atam and Vida Sheshta. Vanasham Parashas Panuchitasya Dharmasya Triyati Matu. Samsini Hari Kushana. This is what happens when you go into 75. Total 11 years now. And so, the purpose of the whole thing is to worship God according to His position. Everybody has a position, you should recognize that. I'm this, I'm that, I can do this, I'm that, this is my nature, that's my nature. If you don't know your nature, ask somebody. What is your impression? I know it's a very intelligent devotee in the temple in Bangalore, where I just was. And I asked him, he was a student, and I asked him, what will you do? What's your knowledge of that? And I was surprised. I said, I know that. He said, are you sure? I said, yes. Will you give my degrees? My degrees qualify me to become get a job in the Geological Survey of India. It's a government job. I don't have to work on my livelihood for the rest of my life. I get my 9 to 5 job, and the rest of it, I will move right next to the temple. I marry a girl. I said, make sure she's submissive, I told him. And he said, yes, I know that. And I will raise a family, and we go to the temple. Right opposite my flat. Perfect. He understands. And he would preach in his capacity. So everybody has to know, what can I do for Krishna? There's a wonderful thing Prabhupada told one time. I will read it to you. It's one of the nicest things, one of the things that stick in my memory. And that goes as follows. You see, I can find it. Prabhupada, where is it? Yeah. It was in the old days when it's gone. So Prabhupada was walking in Pittsburgh, the steel city, steel industry, on a bridge. And Prabhupada pointed at his cane, like this. And so you see this, the writing there on this beam. And it says, unalloyed steel. So Prabhupada said, they have unalloyed steel, that means pure steel, and we have unalloyed devotional service. Then Padumnas. The Prabhupada, what if people don't want to hear our message? And that's common truth, people don't want to hear. Prabhupada said that people might not understand our message, but Krishna will be pleased, and that is our mission. The people, I saw with my own eyes that when Prabhupada was giving initiations in Amsterdam Temple, and there were no flowers on the Havan, it was an initiation of sannyasa initiation of Akoyananda Swami, and some Dutch boys became initiated. So Prabhupada came in, sat down, and he saw there were no flowers. So Prabhupada was very peaceful. So when he saw that, he became angry. Not for himself, but because he was frustrated or something, or let it off on somebody else. He said, "Where are the flowers?" Nobody said, "Where are the flowers? Why does Krishna have no flowers? Where are the flowers? Who's responsible for this?" Prabhupada, the television is there. Somebody said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada looked at the camera and said, "I don't care for television. I care that Krishna has no flowers." So he was in complete disregard of public opinion. He was complete disregard, He said, "I don't care." He told him to them, "I don't care for the television. I care that Krishna has no flowers." That was his point. So he said, the people might not understand our message, but Krishna will be pleased, and that is our mission. Then he said, they thought that Jesus Christ's mission was stopped. They killed him. But his mission was attained. He preached 3 years only, but so many followers. He pleased Krishna. Otherwise you cannot do that. There's no way that you can make for 2,000 years an impression on mankind in terms of piety and worshiping God, unless you have a huge amount of piety. There's no question about it. Enormous amount of piety. He pleased Krishna. Then he says, very important, we must not be disappointed that no one is hearing Krishna consciousness. Say, we will say to the moon, we will say to the stars, we will say to all directions, we will say to the wilderness, because Krishna is everywhere. Wherever we go, we are in the Krishna. I remember when in came, we were all Sankirtan devotees, and we were doing really good. The Germans were actually at that time the leading book distributors. And so Prabhupada always saw the results. It was great pleasure how many books have been distributed. Weekly report. I saw a weekly report to Hitler. It's in writing. Weekly report. How many Jews were arrested? How many Jews were executed? You would enjoy that. How many Jews were executed? How many were arrested? How many enemies were killed? All the murder you wanted to see. Because he was a demon. Such a demon. So, Prabhupada enjoyed the Sankirtan reports. And so, when we arrived in London, we were all in Germany. We heard Prabhupada wants to see you. Come on, we jumped in our cars, let's get did your stuff in 5 minutes and let's go. And so after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 22 Sankirtan vans rolled out of the door. Every moment, another van. Some people are in there, ready to fight. So when we came, the servant saw it. He said, "You should immediately go. Prabhupada wants to see you. We want to take fast first. Prabhupada wants to see you right now." And so we went. And then Prabhupada said, "What is the most important verse?" And he looked at me. And so I said, "Krishna." That's true. That's the most important verse. And then he asked me, what does that mean, Krishna Upadesh? I said, oh, Dash means place. That's also true. You know? Like you have what is it? Place in London. What is the place? Bihar. Well, who's the most famous Bihari? London. He's famous all over the world. He's the biggest rip-off that ever lived and survived. You know, so Desh, yes, means also place. That's right, but Upadesh, what is Upadesh? At that time I was completely confused. I don't know that. Upadesh. Prabhu said you should know. Upadesh is the supreme instruction. Like we have a book, I wrote for you, Upadesha Vita. It's a nectar of the supreme instruction. You should know that. And so then he stopped. And he asked, and what is that supreme instruction? I mean, I got 3 questions from him. And I was completely destroyed as a Brahma. I was now confused. He said, Sarvadana Printajya, Movikansana Radha, Sarvadana. That's what we have to do. We turn to Krishna, then whatever. Krishna will take care of that. If you have Krishna, everything will be taken care of. One of my favorite verses is in Bhagavad Gita. This verse, Manchita Sarvadurgani Manprasad Vishasi. If you direct your consciousness towards me, then Sarvadurgani, all difficulties that arise from Durga, will be destroyed by my mercy. Matpasada perishes. So that's the most important thing. And even in other scriptures, even in Torah, in Jewish scriptures, that turn to Yahweh, even if I give you all sin. And Jesus said, turn to the kingdom first. The kingdom first. Everything else will be taken care of. That emphasis, God first. That's the mentality of the devotee. God first. Don't worry about anything else. If you have that in place, then everything else will come. You know, automatically. This is Krishna's way. We have to do the best. And then Krishna will do the rest. This is a simple formula. Put it to your brain. I do my best, Krishna will do the rest. Don't worry about the rest. Krishna will take care of it. So he says, we must not be disappointed that no one is hearing Krishna consciousness. We will say to the moon, the stars in all directions. We cry in the wilderness because Krishna is everywhere. Now, we want to have a certificate that this man has done something for me. That we do something for Krishna. You know, like one time, Prabhupada came into the temple in Vrindavan, and one of my godbrothers, of course I know the name, but I don't know if she disclosed, he was standing there and spoke one verse. By our good fortune, we met your grace, is this verse. And Prabhupada said to him, do you see the puddle of water there on the floor? He said, yes, my Prabhupada. Clean up, do something practical. So Prabhupada didn't want to hear high-sounding verses. He wants to see that we do something practical. You know, that's the point. You know, we have to do something practical in our life. That there is some profit there. Not for ourselves, that will come automatically, we don't have to worry about it, but for the world, that we make a difference. You know? You want to have a certificate that this man has done something for me. Not popularity, he says. Not popularity. If a pack of asses says, you're very good, what is the use? And I mean, people are analyzed already thousands of years ago, Samitra Sakarai, that was Samsaka, Pashu, something. Men who are like all those camels and asses. Because that's what we have. Don't worry about it. Can't stop on these people. But worry about the person, and then one person who has that sort of security that he sees it, he hears it, and comes to devotion. These are important. These are important. Our Prime Minister in Germany, Mrs. Merkel, he has no significance spiritually whatsoever. Not important. None is important in this world unless he actually is in this business to satisfy Krishna. That makes him important in the eyes of Krishna. Even if it's just waving the Sankirtan devotees, Harinam devotees, although we don't even mean it, that appreciation. It was elicited by the devotees, they were waving, so he automatically waved. But even that Krishna sees this little thing. That's important for him. And so we all can do something for Krishna. We must do something. That is the idea. We have to please Krishna. Prabhupada says, in a pack of asses says, you're very good. What is the use? Or what is that? We have to please Krishna's senses with purified senses. That's the thing. With purified senses, we can worship Krishna properly. Right now we can, or even if somebody doesn't have purity, they still can worship Krishna. But ultimately, the perfection of a human being, of any being, is to worship Krishna with purified senses, because Krishna's senses are purified. And that is our Premanjana Churita Bhakti Luchani Asa Bhatta Deva Videshu Yogayanti Yam Sarasundam Sintatuna Sruga. His eyes anointed with love. I worship the Supreme Personality of God. Sarasundam, Achintya, who is inconceivable, Achintya Guna Swarupa, the inconceivable form of Shyamasukha becomes conceivable to me. I can see it. Krishna gives me the capacity to see if I'm qualified. Like Arjuna wanted to see the universal form. Krishna says, see, present eye you cannot see, but I give you. He saw from one moment to another. Rupa Goswami was sitting at Radha. It's some place where people swing. People swing Krishna on particular days. And so he heard in a tree, there's a tree there, some huge noise of people singing, festival. And he looked up, the tree was 100 miles high. And he saw a gigantic boat in the form of fish swinging. There he saw Radha, Krishna, and all the gopis. He saw all the pastimes, because Lord Krishna gave him that vision, that Krishna vision. And so many. Shyamasundar, he could see Simad run because of the mercy of Krishna. With the mercy of Krishna, everything is possible. And that we have to somehow get. And it doesn't matter how old you are. You might get 75 years. We have to work towards that. We have to see how we can please Krishna the most. Yes, I don't ask me to garden. Don't ask me to chop firewood. I can't do that. I can do this. I can sing for Krishna, lectures of Krishna. That I can do. And so everybody has to see how he can please Krishna according to his capacity. And that will be the perfection. Even a child can worship Krishna, can go down in front of Krishna, or can tell his friends, let's go to the Krishna temple. And Krishna will be very much pleased. Whatever we can do for Krishna is never forgotten. Whatever we do for the world is gone. Whatever we invest in this universe it's a loss. It's like putting money into a bank that's gone bankrupt. At the time of death, even if you have done so many things, if it is not satisfying Krishna, you have nothing when you die. You're all empty. You may be the richest man in India, like this Mr. whatever, starts with A and ends with Bami, right? So unless he starts using his money for the worship of Krishna, then it will be nothing in his next life. You may be very rich in one life. Next life you will be on the street, in the traffic, in Delhi. You knock at the windows, Sa, Sa, Sa. Give one rupee like that. From the top to the nothing. When we went in India, Prabhu came from Germany, he went with us to Sweden. And on a morning, he said, "Do you hear this dog?" I said, "Yes, Prabhu." It was a big dog. He said, "Wah, wah, wah." Strong dog. I said, "You hear it?" He said, "Our Prime Minister, Nehru, became a dog in Sweden this next life." And he knew this from Sridhar Swami. Sridhar Swami knew one of the most famous astrologers of India. He told him, he said, "I made his whatever you call it, the chart." He became a dog in Sweden. From the top position of the Prime Minister of India to the dog, what kind of career is that? What kind of career is that? What did he work from so hard to bring the dog to his next life? And from there to rise in human form takes time. It's not that the dog goes back to Godhead unless Lord Chaitanya saves him, which he did. But normally you are in a long line to work yourself up all the way to the human form. And then when you're fortunate, you use that human form. Why you have to undergo all this? Because you have merit in the human form and did nothing for the protection of Hindu Dharma. Nothing. Whatsoever. Rather you disturb the whole thing as much as possible. Right? So this is the thing that we have to learn. Samsiti Hari to please Krishna. Don't worry. Somebody may be big, somebody may be small, somebody may be fat, somebody may be skinny, somebody may be intelligent, somebody may be stupid. But everybody can worship Krishna. Everyone, of course, capacity. And then everybody is as good as the other. If that's our goal is Samsiti Hari Krishna, we all set. That's the one lesson we have to learn, to worship Krishna. When we chant this feeling. Even in the Bible, there's this one verse. God is approaching the people. He says, "Go out of my vision. Go out of my vision. Your hands are full of blood." Because we're killing you. Your hands are full of blood. He said, "Even though you may make many prayers, I don't hear you. Because your heart is far away from me." That's it. You can make many prayers, but if the heart is not towards Krishna, then even chanting, still valuable, better than nothing, but it is not sufficient. We have to develop this devotion attitude towards chanting, and that is Krishna's mercy. If you can do that, I give you a short, this is the last thing I will read from the teachings of Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur said, Harinam Chaitanya, listen very carefully. Simply by one's own endeavor, no one in this world can overcome being respected. Exactly. No one. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he read this and he just picked this up. Haridas Thakur said, your mind is wandering all over the universe and you chant anyway. Your mind is wandering to past, present, and future when you chant him. You are able to concentrate on Krishna's name when you chant him. You have lusty desires, chant him. You are making offenses with chant him. You are praying to Krishna to help you to chant better. That's actually the key. If you ask Krishna, please allow me to chant better. You chant it at night, you chant it. So going back to this discussion, he said, no one in this universe, in this world, can overcome this spectacles. Such victory can only come about by your own merciful blessings, by the blessings. Therefore, he said, it is absolutely necessary to beg for your grace. We have to beg for Krishna's grace. Please allow me to chant properly. That's the prayer. And then Krishna responds to that. I thank you so much. One last time. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna.
Praise Prithu Prabhu ki.